Thanks to Jeremy Diamond in Tel Aviv. And joining me now is Stephen Cook. He's a senior fellow for Middle East and Africa Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations and an author of the soon-to-be-released book, The End of Ambition, America's Past, Present, and Future in the Middle East. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I want to talk first about Israel and Iran. It's been almost 72 hours since Israel's counterstrike against Iran. It feels like those drums of war that we've been talking about so much aren't beating as loudly between Israel and Iran as they have been. Do you think that each side has said and done what they want to at this time?
I think the key phrase that you used, Alex, is not beating as loudly. Certainly, the Iranians demonstrated that they would not shy away from attacking Israel directly, crossing a red line. Then the Israelis responded, demonstrating to the Iranians that they could penetrate Iranian airspace with impunity. It does seem that neither side is at this moment interested in another blow, but I wouldn't say that this is over between these two countries now that both of these red lines have been crossed. The lead-in from your correspondent in Israel pointed out, there's Israeli military activity in Lebanon. Anything can trip these two countries back into lobbing missiles and rockets at each other once again.
In terms of the American role, it was very interesting in the past week hearing that the U.S. was telling Israel to take the win and essentially move on, messaging to the Iranians through allies that they shouldn't respond to an Israeli attack. You wrote recently for a piece in Foreign Policy, after more than a decade in which the American foreign policy community sought to de-emphasize, pivot away, and retrench from the Middle East, the Biden administration proved that Washington can be, separate from its confused approach to the war in Gaza, a source of security in the region. So what do you make of the Biden administration's efforts to tamp down this escalation while also continuing to support that war in Gaza?
This has been a recurring theme of the Biden administration since October 7th, with the deployment of significant assets from the U.S. Navy to the area, as well as the cobbling together this coalition to help defend Israel during Iran's attack a number of weekends ago. The effort to continue to help ensure Israeli security without escalating the conflict to a region-wide war. I think the administration has generally been successful at doing so through both its diplomatic efforts as well as playing this very significant role in creating what's essentially a regional air defense system.
Yeah, I want to ask you a bit more about that, because Jordan's foreign minister told CNN that Israel's prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, he benefited from the recent escalation between Israel and Iran. And that is notable, not least because, as you note, Jordan actually came to Israel's aid last weekend and acted as part of that air defense shield around Israel. Do you agree that Netanyahu has benefited?
Well, the conversation over the course of the last week has been about Israel and Iran, not Israel's military operations in the Gaza Strip, which has killed tens of thousands of people and have perhaps irreparably damaged Israel's international reputation. So in that sense, taking the spotlight off of the Gaza Strip is a benefit to the Israeli government and the Israeli prime minister. It also demonstrated that Israeli government's efforts to build ties and bridges and the ongoing security dialogue between Israel and its Arab neighbors, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, certainly paid off. The Jordanians and the Saudis were public in saying that they did nothing that they were protecting their own airspace. But the effect was the same. They helped to defend Israel and Israelis.
How do you think that this flare-up, not to downplay it, but this back and forth with Iran, unprecedented as it is, has affected Israel's plans for an offensive in Rafah, which the Biden administration says it has still not seen an acceptable Israeli plan for?
I don't think there was any ever question that the Israelis were going to go into Rafah. I think that the Biden administration has done what it can to put a brake on this operation, but I think that there is consensus within the War Cabinet, there's consensus within the Security Cabinet, and quite honestly, there's consensus among the Israeli public that a major IDF operation in Rafah to root out what remains or what they believe remains of Hamas is necessary and just. This, of course, the concern on the part of the United States and others is the terrible toll that this will likely take on civilians in the Gaza Strip. And that's why there has been the Biden administration has said that they wanted to see a plan, that they opposed the plan. But I think there was never any question that the Israelis were going to do it. The fact that the Israelis were successful in penetrating Iranian airspace, successful in, with help, defending their territory, gives the IDF, I think, a bit more confidence going into a Rafah operation.
Obviously, a very different kettle of fish, though, when you're trying to attack Hamas hiding behind 1.4 million innocent civilians there in southern Gaza. Stephen Cook, really appreciate your time and your thoughts this evening. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.